Right, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to another League One roundup. Hopefully you're having a good Sunday and you've had a good weekend so far. It's time to delve into all of the action across Sky Bet League One yesterday and of course Friday night as well. Please do leave a like and subscribe on the road to 5,000 subscribers, an unbelievable milestone. If we could hit it eventually, please be part of the journey and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as well. That way you'll be notified when I go live or do a recorded episode just like this one. The comment section is always open for constant discussion. Keep your thoughts in there. Continue that conversation in the Discord server. You can join that with the link in the description. So much amazing stuff in this community, delving deep into the brilliant division that is League One. So in the first game, it finishes Morecambe 1, Oxford United 1. The XG for the game 0.21 to Oxford's 1.21. It does feel like a defeat for Oxford. It does feel like a loss. And that's because for so much of the game, especially in that first half, we were in control. It wasn't a great game of football. Not a brilliant advert for Sky Bet League One. And you could tell it was two sides struggling for confidence, struggling for results. And just by looking at the league table, it had that build-up of a relegation six-pointer, a must-win. I don't like using that terminology in football. Quite cliche phrases, but it was that. It was a little bit of that where two sides weren't really playing some of the best stuff. And like I said, if it was an advert for League One, it probably wasn't the best one. Full of anxiousness and nerves. And for Oxford, I think it was one of those where you go 1-0 up. And like I said, in that first half, I thought we were really good. I say really good. We were better. And compared to other games, we were really good. You've got to compare it to what we've seen in recent weeks. It is the end of the really long loss streak. I think it was 9 defeats in 10. It was pretty horrendous. And now that loss streak does come to an end. It's not a win, so we haven't completely broken the deadlock of pretty bad results. But you could see improvements, and it was good, especially in that, like I said, that first 45. You go 1-0 up. And then it's just that task of trying to kill the game off, and something that when you are in the position that we're in, when you're so low of confidence, when the players don't really believe in themselves because they haven't got those recent results to sort of back up that sense of belief, killing games off is so difficult. And we did feel that as fans watching the game, and I imagine as players as well. You just knew we had to get a second goal. My dad I was watching the game with, he kept saying, one goal isn't enough. I was sort of thinking, well, structurally we have been better, especially in that first half. I thought Liam Manning, in his first game in charge, I should have mentioned that earlier, it was his first game in charge in the dugout for Oxford. You felt structurally our shape, we did look stronger. We weren't conceding as many chances. The XG for Morecambe was only 0.21. So again, that does back it up. You can see, like I said, the graph, not many green spikes on that graph there. Will come down to the shots. Only 5 shots from Morecambe, only 2 on target. We didn't concede many efforts, but even being 1-0 up, we had to kill it off because we can't keep clean sheets. We thought we maybe could break that trend yesterday, but we weren't able to, and that comes down to, again, I think that psychological barrier of we can't do it, and we're so poor at it. We've only done it once this season. It's a really bad record, so we had to go and score that second goal to feel much more confident. And every minute that the game was going to go on, every minute that Morecambe was still holding us at only being 1-0 down, they had that extra feel of we only need one more chance, one more goal, and then it's level terms, and the game's back to how it was. We might have had so much possession, 52% possession. In the first half, I think it was more, 60%. I'm right. Second half, it was slightly more squaring towards Morecambe. And that, again, is down to us just putting pressure on ourselves. We invited pressure in that second half because we saw the headlines of being 1-0 up and winning the game, the sort of the dream of breaking this loss streak or winless streak. But we did invite pressure, and it was just a little bit frustrating, very frustrating, because in the end, in a game, I've got a video coming out with Jake and Tom early next week, hopefully Monday or Tuesday, and we spoke about in this type of game where you are playing against a relegation rival, you win it, it's so good. If you lose it, it's so bad. The only way you do have an in-between is if you draw it, because the gain on each team hasn't really been earned, it hasn't really been lost. It is just a draw between two sides, and it's still very tight down there. You can see, by looking at the league table, Morecambe now in that bottom 4 in 22nd. Oxford only 2 points away from Accrington, who are 21st. It's really, really close. Games are being played and teams are playing each other on Tuesday and on Saturday. We're not playing Cheltenham because of international call-ups. So it's very likely that we're going to go into Peterborough in 2 weeks' time in that bottom 4, because you look at MK Dons, they're stringing some results together. We knew one side, or at least one side, was going to gain some form below Oxford. We hoped it was going to be us, or we were going to simultaneously run with them. But if we're not going to do that, and it's going to be other teams picking up results, and we can't get ourselves out of this rut, we're going to be in serious trouble. And I come back to the point of, only being 1-0 up, the Ashley Hunter goal, it's what happens. You're trying to protect a lead, you're trying to protect what you've got, and it's so dangerous. And I think Liam Manning now has seen it with his own eyes, with his own coaching staff, and with Chris Hogg next to him, and just him being in the dugout, he's now felt the frustration of being up in a game and this mentality, unfortunately, within this squad that we are lacking a belief and we desperately need a win. I'm still maybe a little bit delusional, or maybe just hopeful that we will stay up, and I think we have seen bits in that game, especially like I said in the first 45. I thought Marcus Brown was lively. I thought certain players did play with a little bit less pressure. I thought Marcus Brown was one of those, being a little bit more through the way that he came before, being quite direct with the way that players were being taken on. Yeah, and it will show really good with the assist, but other than that, I don't really think he is up to scratch, if I'm being totally honest. Brannigan, I thought, had a pretty average game. Players are playing maybe a bit within themselves, but that comes down to confidence, and hopefully we can sort of strip that all back when the first win does come. When is it going to come? I'm not entirely sure. It does finish 1-1. And it is annoying because the goal came really late on in the 87th minute. I thought we'd done it in a really important game, but it wasn't going to be a first win in the first game for Liam. And he's going to have to wait until at least Peterborough, and that's going to be some serious test in 2 weeks' time. We've still got to play Cheltenham, Forest Green Rovers. On paper, they're the games we've got to really sort of puncture and target for those 3 points, but it's going to be no guarantee. We've got some big games coming up. They're all big. 9 games to go to get Oxford out of this mess. It's not a loss, but it's not a win. And at one point, I thought it would be just that. It finishes at Morecambe 1, Oxford United 1. So up next, we have Wycombe 0, Barnsley 1. The XG for the game 0.72 to Barnsley's 0.29. A game where Barnsley continue on their brilliant run. As for Wycombe, they will feel hard done by. Wycombe in quite a strange performance, and unlike Wycombe Wanderers' performance, higher XG than their opposition will come to possession in just a few moments' time. And by looking at the graph in front of you, they were creating the bigger and better chances. However, the scoreline does not reflect that. They weren't credited with the chances and the opportunities that they made. Barnsley with an important goal, an important 3 points, and that is some statement. To go to Wycombe Wanderers, maybe without Gareth Ainsworth, we are seeing a different Wanderers side. However, regardless of all of that, Barnsley were brilliant in the fact that maybe it was a smash and grab in the nicest way possible. However, at this point in the season, are Barnsley going to really be bothered about that whatsoever? I know I wouldn't be. Right now, Oxford fans, I think we can be pretty sure in saying we wouldn't mind a result like that. And Barnsley, on the run they're currently on, I think it just matters that they get the 3 points. You can see by looking at the league table now, Barnsley are putting a serious push on for the top 2. They're making it really fascinating with those games in hand and with those runs of wins that only does seem to continue every time they step foot on a football pitch. As for Wycombe in 8th place, they had a real chance. They did have a real opportunity to catch up the likes of Bolton. They could still do it with their game in hand. It wouldn't exactly be level on points now because Bolton drew. Will come onto that game later on. But Wycombe with an opportunity to close that gap yesterday at home. You normally would back them. Under Gareth Ainsworth, like I said a minute ago, you probably would favour them slightly. But I think Bloomfield, that he will feel hard done by. That side will feel hard done by as well. I think Barnsley's performance was very similar to the one that Sheffield Wednesday put in at Adams Park a couple of weeks ago, where they won 1-0. A game where they actually played Wycombe at their own match. You can see by looking at the stats there, 52% possession to Wycombe. They don't like having the ball, these squad of players that was built. Maybe Bloomfield is trying to play a different system and play a different way. I wouldn't do it midway through the season, especially at the business end of the campaign. Maybe in the summer, you try and change that philosophy and style of play. But we've seen Wycombe be most effective without the ball and without possession, and maybe not having as much of control of the game as other teams would. And maybe even at home, you don't have the majority of possession. We know home advantage comes with normally more of the ball and a higher ability or a better ability to keep the ball and be more in control of possession. Wycombe are more effective without the ball. Having and forcing Wycombe to keep hold of possession can actually be, I think, Wycombe's downfall at times. You can see 52% possession to the home side Wanderers, but only one shot on target through the entire game. We need to be better. Wycombe needs to be better when it comes to shots on target, when they're having a total of 10 shots, and just generally only having one is not going to test the goalkeeper whatsoever. But I think, like I say, Barnsley and Michael Duff being very tactically switched on and intelligent to the fact that if you're going to get a result at Wycombe, maybe playing at their own game, it is the way to do it. Concede possession, soak up the pressure, and then take the chance when it comes. That's exactly what Barnsley did. Wycombe had, I've got some of the stats here as well, 12 corners in the game, a couple of chances here and there, but only 12 corners. 12 corners in total, but only, I think, 1 or 2 opportunities that came from them, not really making use of those whatsoever. I am starting to worry with Wycombe slightly without Gareth Ainsworth. I know it's quite a big thing to say, and this might come back and bite me on the backside. You've got to give Bloomfield time, but ultimately, I think early on there's some worrying signs there. They're not the same type of outfit without Gareth Ainsworth in the dugout. Like I said, that could be way too early. Wycombe fans, I want you to let me know. Barnsley, congratulations, a really good result for you. And like I said, with those games in hand, you're going to make it really fascinating come the end of the campaign when pushing on for the top 2. Maybe, like I said at the start, a bit of a potential smash and grab in the footballing terms. But at this point in the season, at the business end of the campaign, is that really a problem? Is that really going to be something that Barnsley fans are going to moan about? I don't think they are. They're going to just take the result and get out of town. At Wycombe Wanderers, that's a pretty good way of doing it because we know the side and the quality in that team, especially with that home advantage they do normally take much advantage of. They weren't able to yesterday. They lose at home to Barnsley. Wycombe Wanderers 0, Barnsley 1. So on Friday night, Sheffield Wednesday took on Bolton Wanderers. The game finished 1-1. The XG was 0.79 to Bolton's 0.43. Not a game to remember. It wasn't brilliant, let's be totally honest. Not a match full of chances, but a good battle between good sides. It was quite a weird one to break down. I asked my Discord server how they would reflect on it. They watched the game. They know more about it than I do. I've looked at the stats, looked at all these different fan opinions and breakdowns, but ultimately the people that watch the game know it far better than I do. It's the first 5 minutes, actually, Bolton were quite good, came out the blocks fast, and then Sheffield Wednesday sort of grew into it. 10, 20 minutes, had a couple of really good chances. Trafford, once again, had a really, really good game. But as the game progressed, I think Bolton got into it more. It was one of those where they almost grew into the match, which something the Bolton Wanderers maybe haven't done against Sheffield Wednesday. They weren't expecting to do it. In other games, they've dropped points and they've been left really frustrated because of the opposition. They do expect more, but Sheffield Wednesday have been brilliant this season. Probably will go on still to win the title. So there was a lack of pressure maybe, and that's maybe how Bolton were more through the way they came forward at times. Like I said, it wasn't a brilliant game. The chances weren't sort of flying everywhere, but they had to be tactically and structurally strong. They had to have a defensive back line that was really strong because Sheffield Wednesday are a really good side when they do come forward. Of course, they have quality. They scored in that first block. You can see when they came forward in the first sort of 10 minutes, Windass scores the goal. And then Adebayo, of course, they signed from Burton in January, scores to make it 1-1 in that really good spree before half-time. And that's where Bolton really did turn up. And maybe that's that level of freedom and the pressure that wasn't really there. They can come forward and be really, really good. And they did have a really good spell. Like I said, in the last sort of 10 minutes of the half, they should have had a penalty as well. There's a really clear penalty that I think we can all see should have definitely been given for Bolton Wanderers, and they'll be frustrated they weren't able to get that. But that's the EFL and in particular League One officiating that we are now used to. It's nothing new to see referees making very silly and costly errors when it matters. Like I said, Trafford I thought had a really good game. A few efforts that didn't really have to be sort of wonder saves of Trafford, but he was there and he was in goal and he was a safe pair of hands, which is something that I think we've seen a lot of Trafford over the last 2 years for Bolton, being really strong between the sticks. And the second half, I think Bolton were the better side. They had more of the ball. Interestingly, they dominated it. Maybe they could have done a little bit more with it, but again, you've got to respect the opposition. Wednesday are a really good side. The XG is fairly similar. The chances in the end were fairly similar. And the score was 1-1. A fairly even game. Not one that, like I said, is a brilliant one. Not one you're going to tell your grandkids about later on in life, playing or watching in it. But I come back to that thing of Bolton not really expecting to get a result against Sheffield Wednesday based on the fact of where Wednesday have been in terms of their form and confidence over the last couple of weeks and months and potentially through the entire season. It could be argued. It could have been more. In the end, it could have been more for Bolton. They could have come away with a result of 3 points if that penalty had been given, and maybe some of the chances had been converted. I think Wednesday probably missed the likes of Byers in that midfield. Of course, they didn't have him. It was a rotated side slightly, or a couple of injuries being forced into it. Byers wasn't on the bench, so I believe he was injured. Michael Smith came on for Windass, who went off with an injury, and of course he normally starts this type of game. So there were a couple of changes here and there. James had a go left back instead of potentially Johnson, or Brown has been quite good when he's come in the last couple of weeks. But I think Byers has been the big one. We know his box-to-box mentality and his box-to-box ability is really, really strong and so helpful for Wednesday. I think that could have been a really big miss, but generally not a bad result for either side. Look at the league table now, you can see Sheffield Wednesday still top of the tree. They have got a point cushion and 2 games in hand, so it's not a bad point. Bolton, or they haven't been in great form recently, they are winless in the last 4. They've got real quality in there, and you can't sort of just go, they're not in great form and we're at home, we're doing really well, we don't have to turn up, because Bolton can test any opposition, we know that, and they've got quality in that side. The question's always been sort of maybe have they let themselves down and not been as clinical at the key moments and been good in front of goal. I think their goal scoring ability has been slightly off compared to other teams. We can see that by looking at their goals for compared to other teams in that top 6. Maybe not as many shots as they would have liked, especially on target. That's what I said about it could have been better. It wasn't a great performance for either side. Well, as I say that, it was a good performance of Bolton and an okay one for Wednesday. Very, very subjective to how they've played in recent weeks. It was fairly even in the end. Scoreline does see it. But 4 shots on target. 4 shots in total, 1 shot on target. Like I said, it's not one to write home about, but it was a good game in the fact that it was a great battle, and more of a tactical battle between the 2 managers. We saw 2 managers being tested with the way they could tactically set up a side, but it finishes Sheffield Wednesday 1, Bolton Wanderers 1. Let's go around the grounds. Let me know, Wednesday fans and Bolton fans, in the comment section down below. Quite a weird one to break down. Side, Bolton growing into the game, having chances, definitely should have had a penalty. That's how I look at it, but do let me know. Of course, you know the game better than I do. I've tried to sort of get as much as I can from it. So, around the grounds, we start with Plymouth, who beat Forest Green Rovers 2-0. Comfortable, never really in doubt. Forest Green Rovers do look down and out, but Argyle get a really important win to continue on their title chase. As for Ipswich, it finishes 2-0 against Shrewsbury once again on their top 2 chase. They are continuing to grind results on a really good winning run at the moment. Bristol Rovers 0, Pompey 2, a red card for Bristol Rovers in the game at Portsmouth. Colby Bishop, 2 goals for him, a brace for Colby Bishop once more. That man can't be stopped. His goal scoring ability right now is pretty spectacular. Maybe going a little bit under the radar, potentially because Pompey aren't in that top 6. He's not getting as much recognition as he should get. But Colby Bishop is a top striker, scoring some very important goals and potentially keeping Portsmouth late and unlikely top 6 chase alive. I say that very, very carefully because I think there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done. But with Bolton dropping points, who knows? Peterborough also in there. We'll come into their game in just a second. Cambridge United 1, Charlton 2. A good away result for Charlton in that one. Accrington 0, MK Dons 1. Very interesting for the relegation battle. Accrington, that's not a good result. You need to be winning those type of games. They weren't able to. I fear for Accrington. I really do fear for them. I think this could be quite a significant and pivotal result in their campaign. Losing at home to MK Dons, of course, a relegation rival. MK Dons now gaining a little bit of momentum at the key time in their race for safety. I'm getting worried about it. Accrington should be even more worried because losing a game like that, we speak about when you're fighting for teams in and around those positions as well. It's so good if you win, but so bad if you lose. Cheltenham 3, Exeter 1. Cheltenham slowly getting their way out of safety, or into safety, should I say. Exeter did get a goal back, but nothing to really write home about for them. A disappointing afternoon, maybe the better side when coming forward. However, chances were taken for Cheltenham and they win the game 3-1. Next up, Port Vale 2, Burton Albion 3, a 5-goal thriller. Burton coming out the winning side, probably across the game, not the better side. However, took their chances and ultimately in their ongoing relegation fight, they're slowly getting themselves out of trouble. Another really good and important victory as we do head into the business end of the campaign where every point matters and 3 points matter so much. Finally, Lincoln City 0, Peterborough United 3, the end of their invincible home record for Lincoln City to their rivals Peterborough United, and Posh did look very good when they did come forward. They were dangerous and they did take those chances. 1-0 at half time, but the final score being 3-0. Peterborough do look like they could potentially chase down the likes of Bolton Wanderers. More likely now, Derby County. That top 6 may not be as confirmed as we once thought. Don't worry. You're thinking, Jack, talk about the top 6 more. There's a video coming out with me, Jake and Tom early, potentially tomorrow when you're watching this. Early next week, a video breaking down the top 6, our final top 6 predictions, and our bottom 4 predictions as well. So the idea of Peterborough, Wycombe, Pompey pushing into that top 6 with Derby, Bolton maybe not being as secure as we thought. That will all be discussed in a video coming out very, very soon. But the top 6 right now is Bolton, Derby, Barnsley, Ipswich, Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday, top of the table. As for the relegation battle, It's nerve-wracking. Forest Green Rovers are bottom, with Cambridge, Morecambe and Accrington filling up the places above them. That is the league table, and that is the roundup complete. Enjoy it. Please leave a like and subscribe. On the road to 5,000. We can do it. We can do it if you are part of the journey, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for the recent support, the growth, the numbers, the interaction. That's why I do love it. The interaction is just what's so fantastic about it. It really is. So please do continue at it. Continue at it. Maybe. You can tell it's late. I'll see you all very soon. See you in a bit.